Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be going over my second Ascended champion, and I decided to go with Kate Bishop for several reasons. First of all, she's just so well designed, she's so versatile, she's so fun to play. Second of all, very good in battlegrounds, and she's also going to have the Alliance War attack tactic for one more season, so I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of her there. And finally, I do think she's going to have some use in the Necropolis. If you build her up to her max, her cold snap damage, the caltrops damage is just absolutely insane. So before I get into this video, we're going to see a couple fights where we go over some of her long form content rotations and the best ways to do the most damage per second. So stay tuned for that. But I just want to give some shout outs initially for the people that sort of helped me love this champion and get better at playing her. First of all, DLL himself, the designer of Kate Bishop, he already had designed Absorbing Man, and so many people fell in love with that champ. But Kate was his second champion and someone that he kind of did from start to finish, I believe, because I think Absorbing Man was already like partially thought out. So in my opinion, this is like one of the first like pure DLL creations, and she is just so good. Now there's a lot of like math and stuff that goes into how her damage works, and I had a lot of side conversations with DLL who helped me understand this kind of stuff. So that alone is so helpful, and that's one of the main reasons I was even able to make this video at all. So thanks to DLL. Second of all, big thanks to MSD. I met MSD up in Vancouver, and just like what an A-class guy. Like I had so much fun hanging out with him, and he's just so nice and obviously such a great player. But he ascended his Kate before I did. Obviously that was his first Ascended champ. So there's so many videos that he already has. And a lot of that was sort of like sparking thoughts in my head about the best ways to use her. So I did have some discussions with him, and of course I checked out his videos. So you definitely want to check out his guides and some of his solos with her, because you'll learn even more from him than you will from me. And lastly, I want to give a big shout out to Vega, my good friend in this game. I believe he is also releasing a video today on his Ascended Kate Bishop. So we were both kind of on the same wavelength there in terms of who we wanted to ascend. And in his video, he really pushes the limits of her and goes over like how to get the absolute most max red damage possible. And in him making that video and me making this video, we also had a lot of discussions on the sideline where I think we both learned a little bit from each other and kind of discovered some things that the other person wasn't taking advantage of. So, you know, I just want to hammer home how cool Marvel Contest of Champions community is, that these types of discussions can happen and we can learn together and get better at the game. So, you know, don't want to get too sappy about it, but I was just like so jazzed about that three of my really good friends in the game sort of like helped me understand this champion even better. And then now I'm going to try my best to do the same for you, to give you a little bit of insight. So let's get into it. I want to talk about the cold snap and how to absolutely maximize it. So the cold snap is probably the biggest source of damage. And the big thing to know about it is that when it is on a perfect release, it is going to benefit from the critical damage multiplier, right? So you can see here it says inflict a critical cold snap. So in order to get the hardest hitting cold snap, you have to do a few things. It first checks your attack rating. So that's why like the Ascended one is going to be better than the rank 5 one. And then it then checks your crit damage rating, which is like the cruelty. So that's like cruelty mastery. The other ways to increase it is the fragility debuff, which is off of the dissolver arrow, or the special 3, which puts on a passive crit damage multiplier as well, like a passive cruelty. So if all of those things are lined up ahead of time, the cold snap's going to hit harder. And then the last thing that it looks at is how many dialed ins you have. If she's SIG 200, you can get 5 dialed ins, and each one is going to increase the potency of the trick arrow effects by 15%. So I'm not good enough at math to figure out how that all adds up, but just know when you have 5, it's going to be at the max. So that begs the question of like, how do you get the hardest hitting cold snaps? Well, the way to really max it out is to get 3 fragilities with max potency, which is after you've already have five dialed in, then throw the special 3, which puts the cruelty on, and then do 3 critical cold snaps But, at that point, you've already spent like 11 or 12 bars of power, and it becomes a little bit the thing of it's like, hey, I'm doing all this stuff without doing damage so that later I can do damage, which is like not the best way to play this game. So in a little bit of testing and a little bit of discussion, what I found and what I'm going to show you in the first video is actually go straight to the dissolver arrows, which are the fragility, and stack 3. Well, I'm also assuming that you're using the America Chavez synergy, which allows you for 3 effects on the trick arrows. I think that's going to be really important for Necropolis. It almost doubles her damage, believe it or not. So assuming you have 3 trick arrows per debuff or passive, you want to put on the 3 fragilities, because due to diminishing returns, the amount of crit damage rating, the amount of cruelty that you're going to get is not going to get that much higher after you do those first 3. So get them going quickly and then shift to the cold snap, and then stack the cold snap a total of 5 times so that the final 3 sort of replace themselves and they're at the max potency for how much you've done so far, which is, again, checking the crit damage rating, and then at that point you've set 3 of the arrows at the 5 dialed in potency. Okay, so does that kind of make sense? What I found when going up against Labyrinth of Legends Star-Lord is 3 fragility, 5 cold snap. That's going to probably be the fastest way to kill him. I was getting around 2 minutes and 30 seconds doing that way. And then if you have more health to deal with, that's when you can start messing around with, hey, I'm going to throw a special 3 to make the cold snaps reapply even harder. Maybe I'll go to the caltrops, which is another source of damage that's kind of underrated. All right, so now that I've gone over that, we're going to go straight into the fights. I have 2 Star-Lord fights. The first one, I'm going to do exactly what I said and then show you the difference after throwing the special 3. And then the second one, we're actually going to focus on the caltrops. And now this Star-Lord doesn't have enough health to max ramp. So what I do in that one is just kind of focus a little bit more on the caltrops and show you how underrated that damage is as well. So anyway, we've talked about enough math. Let's get into some gameplay and talk about how to maximize Kate Bishop for endgame content. Alright, so let's get started. This is Labyrinth of Legends Star-Lord. We're going to do what I think is the fastest cold snap rotation. And, before the fight starts, I just want to kind of mention that, of course, in this type of content, Star-Lord is one of the easiest champs to fight, easiest animations, and also there's like 0 nodes on this fight. So, it's important to just know that this is a showcase of damage. I do believe in Necropolis there's going to be a lot of factors that affect the way you play, and that could affect how good she is. But, if we're just kind of doing some theory crafting, we're just going to take a look here. So a couple things to note. I started with Dissolver, which does do a couple things. It puts on these fragility, which increase my cruelty, my crit damage. It also puts on the Sunder, which means that his crit resistance is going to go to 0. It doesn't affect Star-Lord. He doesn't have any native crit resistance. You'll see I'm nailing all the perfect releases. The way I like to do it is I let her do her... That was funny, by the way, that he evaded us. So the way I like to do it is to throw it, I do the flip, and then I slow down. So you can do it even earlier than that, or you can do it later or not at all. But what I like to do is, again, now that we've transitioned to cold snap, you throw it, you do the flip, then you slow down, then you wait for the glint, and then you hit it. So you can see we've already thrown 4 special ones. So we've got 1 critical cold snap, which was at 3 dialed in potency. This one's going to be at 4 dialed in potency. So what that means is we have to do 3 more, because every time you throw a trick arrow, it actually replaces the one that's there. The stack stays at 3, but you do need to replace it to get the higher potency one. That also means if you mess up, if you miss a critical cold snap, you can replace it later. So like the cool thing about her is even if you make mistakes, it doesn't mean that that arrow is stuck at that potency for the entire fight. So here we go. Here's another one. That's at max potency for what we're trying to do right now. And then I think we have 1 more to do in order to get 3 at 5 dialed in. We're using the striker as much as we can. Notice actually that because this is a rank 2 Winter Soldier relic, that when we throw it, it actually puts an energy vulnerability on Star-Lord, which in real time is going to make the cold snap hit harder. So that's the way the energy vulnerability works. Now you can see it fell off, which actually means the Cold Snap is hitting for a little less hard. So at this point, we've set up what I consider the fastest way to kill 3.3 million health. And what I'm going to just show you quickly is not to go for speed. I want to show you what the difference is when we apply new arrows with the cruelty. So we didn't nail the mini game, but it almost doesn't matter. When you don't nail the mini game, you don't lose a dialed in, and you still get the crit damage rating. The one thing that you don't get is you don't get the precision passive, but that doesn't really matter. That doesn't affect your red damage at all. That only affects your yellow numbers. So now that we've applied a couple more, we can see that we used to be ticking for 18k and change. Now we're ticking for 19k and change, because the arrows were looking for that new crit damage rating. So that's one option, right? You do 3 of the fragility, 5 of the cold snap, then go to special 3. If you have a lot more health to go on, and say they're bleed immune and you don't want to use the caltrops, then you reapply 3 more cold snaps at that potency. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, without going to the special 3, that's usually a 2-minute, 30-second kill on Star-Lord. Now we're going to try something different. I want to show you how underrated and powerful this caltrops is. So this Star-Lord doesn't have enough health for me to fully ramp. So what I'm doing on this fight is actually starting with the cold snap. I'm just doing that to build some dialed in and get him down a little bit faster. So again, this is maybe not the best way to do long health pools. This is good for like small and medium fights. You would start with the cold snap. But what I want to show you is the max potency caltrops, because it again is extremely underrated, and you do need to alter your play style so that he is running over the caltrops. But wait till you see these numbers. It kind of astonished me, and this is one of the things that I learned from watching Vega's video, is how potent the caltrops is. So here we go. We're utilizing the heavies. We're utilizing the unblockable in the corner so that we can chain the heavies to the special ones. Hopefully that all makes sense. I think if you know anything about Kate Bishop, you know that you need to be landing these heavies so that you refresh the effects. When you keep them in the corner, they're paused. When in the corner, they're more likely to throw specials. It's just the way the kit fits together is just so nice. So now that we have gotten our first 3 cold snaps, we're going to actually go all the way to 5 so that we can get 5 dialed in. There we go. We again utilize the unblockable in the corner. We are now at 5. So I'm going to switch to caltrops. We just switched to tranquilizer. Now we're going to switch one more time to caltrops. And what I want you to see is what it looks like when we get 3 caltrops at the max potency, which is 5 dialed in. Now the caltrops do not benefit from anything else like crit damage rating, so there's no reason to go to the special 3 if you're focusing on caltrops. And again, we're just trying to get our 3, and then we're going to watch the numbers. So the other thing to note is that even without doing the fragilities first, the cold snap is still ticking for like almost 10k. I think when we threw the striker it was over 10k. Right now it's going at like 9k. So getting those cold snaps up early is pretty amazing, and it's still doing a lot of damage. So now we have maxed out the caltrops. We threw the striker, which again it makes the potency go a little bit higher on the cold snap. Now there's 2 ways for him to activate caltrops: if he dashes forward, if he dashes backward, or if he throws a heavy. So what we want to do is start being a little bit more passive. Let him dash toward us, let him throw heavies, and if you're looking closely, when he dashes back or forth, it is hitting for 22k bleed damage per dash. And then because the heavy attack is double potency, by the way, a little flex there, we got the special 2 perfect release, which is a little bit harder, something I've been practicing, and we just put some fragilities on him for fun. When he throws this heavy, watch this, man. Well, he didn't throw it there, but he's about to. 45k bleed caltrops damage every time he throws a heavy attack, which means the cold snap is just ticking away. We just need to be a little mindful about getting him in the corner, and then if he throws a heavy attack because we're block baiting, it's 45k damage. And this is with no additional synergies except for America Chavez. This is not running the recoil tree mastery or anything like that. So what I wanted to show you here is that there's a lot of ways to try to like min-max Kate Bishop, but what I found is like using some combination of the last 2 rotations that I did is going to be plenty. It's really going to be plenty for Necropolis, especially if the content is a little bit more demanding, where like you need to have an alternate play style, or there's some kind of node that gets in your way. You know, she's still going to do a ton of damage even if you don't absolutely maximize her. So anyway, let me know if you've discovered anything about Kate Bishop that I have potentially missed. She's a very complicated champion to understand, but if you just kind of like get some of these main concepts, you know, like getting the dialed ins, knowing when to throw the heavy, knowing which specials to use, and when to switch arrows and things like that, you are going to just have an absolute ball with her. She's just so aggressive and so fun. And, you know, this is not even getting into her uses and stuff like Battlegrounds, where you're only focusing on the cold snaps and just eliminating their health really quickly, or War, or just in general content. So very excited about her and her ascension. Looking forward to potentially using her in the Necropolis in a week's time or so. And yeah, we'll take it from there. So thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you do check out DLL, MSD, and Vega's videos on Kate Bishop. It's a very, very easy YouTube search. Just type in their names in Kate Bishop and just like tons of videos are going to pop up. I highly recommend doing that if you're interested in learning this champion. And I'll catch you in the next one.